So welcome everybody who is attending this meeting, whether you are part of our LACFDA Funeral Directors Association or a guest. I have the great honor today of doing a brief introduction for Assessor Jeff Prang. So I got a little information written down I'd love to share. Los Angeles County Assessor Jeff Prang was elected in 2014 as the 27th assessor for the County of Los Angeles, and then re-elected in 2018. So twice as nice. He likes us. He's come back. He was raised in Warren, Michigan, and Assessor Prang is a graduate of Michigan State University. So that means go Spartans.
Go Spartan, go green.
That's right. After graduation, Mr. Prang relocated to California, where he has served nearly 18 years as a council member for the city of West Hollywood, including 4 terms as mayor, among many other positions in the public sector. So there's some great information in there. And Mr. Prang, I don't know if you know, but 18 in Judaism is the most lucky, honorable number. So high, best number you could have, 18 years in any position.
Yeah,
it's so good.
I do know that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Upon taking office in 2014 as a Los Angeles County Assessor, Mr. Prang implemented sweeping reforms to ensure that the strictest ethical guidelines rooted in fairness, accuracy, integrity would be adhered to in his office. And those are all core values any of us can get behind. And Assessor Prang is a State Board of Equalization licensed appraiser, lives in Baldwin Hills with his husband, Ray, and is a frequent guest lecturer at local colleges and universities. So thank you for attending, and thank you so much for coming here. And everybody, please welcome Assessor Jeff Prang.
Thank you very much, Jenna, and thank you for working with us and agreeing to allow us to come and talk today. I'm sure everybody agrees that when you start thinking about how do you put together an exciting, thrilling session for your members, you probably think the Los Angeles County Property Tax Assessor. But it's actually been a goal of mine for a number of years to reach out to the funeral service professionals, because I think there is an area and an opportunity for us to support one another on a specific issue. And I want to introduce you to what that is in a way to provide additional resources to the people, the families that you're helping during a very difficult time. First, just let me briefly explain what the assessor is, and also as importantly, what it is not. The one thing that everybody thinks I do is actually the one thing I don't do, and that's collect taxes. There's another guy who does that, who's got a very intuitive title. It's called the tax collector. I'm often called the tax assessor, but there actually is no such thing as a tax assessor. That's the conflation of 2 separate offices. For those who are unfamiliar with the job, I'm one of 3 countywide elected officials. The other 2 are the sheriff and the DA. I administer a department of about 1,300 employees in 6 locations throughout the county, and we're the largest local property assessment agency in the U.S., and we're responsible for valuing over 2.5 million real property parcels and business assessments annually. But because we know that you are the foremost expert in helping the bereaved, I wanted to come to you and talk about an opportunity to provide information that I think will be added value services for the people, the clients that you serve. You're probably wondering why the county assessor is speaking to funeral directors, but there is an important connection, or I hope that there is. My office is responsible for recording changes in ownership information on property. In the event of a death of a property owner, a number of things have to occur because that death of a property owner is a change in ownership under the law, obviously. If these things do occur, don't occur, particularly within a certain time frame, the heirs to property could face tax increases, penalties, and a bureaucratic quagmire that often gets them, property owners and their beneficiaries, into a lot of trouble. One of our biggest service challenges in my department stems from people who inherit property who simply don't understand what they need to do with the property following the death of their loved one. And so my goal today is to introduce you to this issue and to enlist your support in helping us educate property owners dealing with the loss of a loved one, and to give you some easy to access resources that you can provide to your client base. Settling affairs after the death after a death should be fairly straightforward. And to that effect, we have created an information packet for your association to use and to offer to the folks who come to you to take care of their loved ones who have passed. And it's hoped that this will be information that you will find useful, that you could share with your clients. Our website actually hosts an array of information, forms, guides pertaining to everything from tax savings programs to property tax calculators. But we have something else called the Death of Real Property Owners Information Package, which contains virtually everything that you need following the death of a property owner. We created a sample packet that we even designed so that if you wanted to use this information, you could brand it with your own logos and information, whatever works best for you. Or you could use just the general materials that come from our office. We tried to design this so it wouldn't overwhelm you. In fact, we created to do just the opposite. It does have some of the most basic things that somebody needs to know upon the death of a property owner. The first thing, which is really important, is the heirs of property have to notify us when a property owner dies. If there's a beneficiary and there's other documents that need to be filed to ensure that the property can be transferred properly. In some cases, we can transfer it without the need for a tax increase. There's other steps. If there's inheritance involved, there's a new proposition called Proposition 19. We have a fact sheet in there on how children and grandchildren can inherit the property from their parents or grandparents without being reassessed at a higher tax rate. Last, a lot of people, as you know, use trust these days. A lot of people are under the mistaken belief that a trust protects property from reassessment and that it puts everything on autopilot, but this is not the case. Every such situation is unique, but we put together a lot of fact sheets and forms that are going to be needed by anybody who's dealing with a change in ownership due to the death of a property owner. Let me just highlight a couple of points about the items that are in this packet of information. The first is a fact sheet that you find is called Death of a Property Owner. It's a one-page reference that lays the foundation for what needs to happen in the event of a death, starting with notifying us. The truth is the law says that under the law, you're required to file what's called a change in ownership, death of real property owner form within 150 days, as required by law. I would say that virtually nobody does. Nobody knows that they're required to notify the assessor, and this ultimately gets almost everybody in trouble with estate planning. There's a form included in the packet that needs to be mailed to us with the original signature. And again, failure to file this could complicate inheritance and estate planning. The other thing, which I referenced a moment ago with Proposition 19, this is what allows people to pass on their property between parents and children and parents and grandchildren. If this will impact, this new law actually impacts people inheriting property in a number of ways. One, it shortens the window in which people need to take care of these bureaucratic steps in order to avoid a tax increase. These new deadlines were greatly accelerated from the previous law. Now you have, the previous law allowed you 3 years to take care of your affairs. Now you have to do it within 12 months. And then again, we also in the packet is a guide called a Guide to Trust and Tax Savings. And again, people have a disproportionate tendency to get in trouble with estate planning because they think the property is in trust. They're not quite sure what to do. They don't take these other steps that are required separate of the trusts. As with the other guides and fact sheet, each step in this packet is outlined with a corresponding form to ensure that any property transfer is handled correctly and in the appropriate amount of time. This process shouldn't be difficult, and I'm hoping that by partnering together and providing you this information that you can share with your clients when they come in to secure your services, it'll be a benefit and a value-added resource. If there's any way that my office can be of additional support, provide training or briefings to any of your employees, if that would be useful, we'd be happy to provide that. But the bottom line is, the process of dealing with property inheritance shouldn't be difficult to navigate. The death of a property owner can create challenge for heirs, family members, and estate planning. I know that survivors look to you in your profession to guide them during a very difficult time, and knowing that they may face difficulty with estate planning and inheritance, you are probably better situated than anybody to have resources available to share with your clients that will hopefully make their lives a little bit easier during a time of grief. This packet's a great resource that you can provide to them. And as I mentioned, we're willing to work with you to make sure this information works. If you can use it, we'll make it to work for any way that is appropriate for your needs. I want to thank you for your time and consideration. I know this is a lot of information, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have at this point. And I put all my contact information in the chat as well as here on the screen.
You had stated that a property could be reassessed after death if nothing is done. How would that occur?
So if once we learn that there is a new owner of property, if proper forms, in this case for inheritance, if Proposition 19 form is not filed, our system will read that as a change in ownership because there's going to be new names on the deed that's recorded. You could be excluded from reassessment, but you have to fill out that paperwork.
Okay, but in other words, if after death, you don't randomly just go and reassess.
No, we don't.
Properties.
No. Sometimes after a death, sometimes the family think the property's in a trust and they don't do anything, and then they decide maybe 5 years later to sell the property, but the property is still in the name of the deceased parent. And then when we talked about the quagmires, this is a quagmire because particularly under the new law, Prop 19, you only have 12 months to get all of your affairs in order. And if you're inheriting property and your parents owned it for a very long time, had a low tax base, suddenly you're stuck with a 2022 assessed value, your property taxes on that family home are going to skyrocket. And you could end up having to pay penalties as well. And that's and we deal, probably one of the largest public service issues that we get are people calling us and says, hey, my dad or my mom died, a year and a half ago, and now I'm getting all these bills, and why do I have to pay this ridiculous amount of money? They're difficult stories because I know that people go through a lot of challenges when they're grieving. They don't know all the things that need to be taken care of with bank accounts and debt and all the other things that are involved. This is just one of them, but we think this is an area where we can, by working together, we can make sure people who need it have that information readily available.
And besides parent-grandparent exclusion and to the kids and grandkids, is there any other exclusion that would possibly apply to a family where they wouldn't get reassessed if they're not a grandchild or a child of a grandparent or a parent?
So I'm going to actually have one of my ownership specialists on the line, Robert Izazaki, who's the one who handles a huge number of these calls. Let me have Robert give you a quick answer to that.
Sure. So as the assessor pointed out, and as you pointed out, transfers between grandparents and grandchildren, parents and children, and interspousal transfers, those are all excluded transfers based on the relationship that exists between the transferor and transferee. Even when you have situations where an aunt may have been very close with a niece or an uncle with a nephew, something like that, and the property is getting handed down in that manner, unfortunately, there's no specific authority that allows us to exclude those transfers, and they're reassessed as if it were just a sale or transfer to a third party.
So is it my assumption this is who you're really looking for in this situation, or I'm just surprised that all of a sudden this came to light seemingly out of the air. I mean, if we have, because I haven't had any families ever come back and say, oh my gosh, yeah, the whole reassessment, the transfer of the property was a zoo. I wish I would have known more information on that going forward. I don't think it's a bad packet to give out, and I really do think that's a good thing for us to give out to our families so that they have an idea and know what to do with it. But I was just curious if there's any underlying reasons of if a lot of properties are not being reassessed because people aren't notifying of the death and things like that.
We get this. These are common public service issues that we receive on a daily basis. And candidly, as the department head, when people get to me, when members of the public find me personally, it's probably 50% of them are dealing with a cleanup of inherited property. It really became a important issue for me in the last year with the adoption of Proposition 19. Under the old law, as I mentioned previously, you could up to several years later make corrections to the change in ownership, and some of the property tax benefits were retroactive. Under Prop 19, it is a hard and fast 12 months. And I can easily envision how people who are in a state of grief, who have a lot of administrative things to take care of with the estate, may overlook some of the responsibilities dealing with property ownership. And I really just don't, I don't want to see people lose tax benefits because they simply didn't know what's going on. And so few people know what they're supposed to do as it relates to property ownership unless they have professional guidance. So we just decided that we would launch this kind of somewhat of a grassroots campaign by speaking to those who speak to people who are in this position, and funeral homes and your association are on the front line. We thought it would be a good place to build that relationship.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy that they only gave 12 months under Prop 19. I don't know whose bright idea that one was, but with a family who's grieving and going through all the transfer of just trying to get their life back in order, trying to transfer and deal with the property is kind of the last on the list of things to do.
Right. So we recognize that you have a million things to do when you have clients, and transfer of property is probably way down on that list. But I would presume that, I don't know your industry, but I presume when you have clients that come in, that you probably have all types of resources available to them that have nothing to do with your services, but that they may need. We just want ours to be another one of those that you have the opportunity to share with your clients.
No, I think it's great.
Make sure they don't have to call me down the road.
I have a question. Where did you say that we were able to receive these packets? Is it on the website?
We have it on our website. I don't know if somebody could put that link to
Yeah.
the chat. And then we are also, as I indicated, we are preparing packets, which I presume we could provide online as well as in hard copy, so that you could either print them out and put them in the documents that you give to your clients, or give them a website where you can refer them to.
Certainly, I know that at least my experience is I get questions like that all the time, and I'm always like, not really my area of expertise, but if there was something that I could give families that might help them in this direction, by all means. That's what we're all here to do.
That's our goal. We just want something you can give to them and say, all your questions are answered here. If you talk to somebody, there's a phone number.
That's great.
I have a question.
Sure.
Thank you, Assessor Prang, for your time today. My name is Chanel. I'm with Hollywood Funeral Home and a board member of the LACFDA. And I had a question regarding, is there a certain amount of information that a family needs prior to contacting your office? For example, maybe they don't know if the property is in a trust, or maybe they don't know if it was under, mom's name, dad's name, whatever the case may be. Is that something that if they just make first contact with you and you pull up the property, do you have that information available?
We have everybody's information. We know everything about you. So
Okay.
All we need is an address. If you have the assessor's identification number, which is on your tax bill, that is helpful as well. But they don't need anything in advance other than the address of the property.
Great.
We'll pull it up and we'll know exactly who owns it and what the mailing address is and what the taxes are and all. If there's a trust recorded, we'll have all that information.
Perfect. Thank you.
We really don't want you guys to work too hard. We just want you to know that we're there and that you have a place to steer people to.
Once these packets are created, I can work with Michelle, who's been super great in helping you and I connect, but then we can put it onto LACFDA's website too as a link, which might be helpful.
Right. It's I think that's what we're asking for, just to find a way to make sure that we have easy access to this information, which people need.
Great. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. I appreciate your giving us a few minutes to talk about this. Hopefully it's hopefully you'll agree that this is something that could be of value to your clients, and we look forward to working with you and anybody needs our help in the weeks and the months and years ahead.
Great. And we really appreciate everyone taking time out right at their lunch break, probably, to speak to our organization.
Absolutely. We'll keep in close touch, and feel free to reach out to us if you need us.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prang.
Thank you, everybody. Great to be with you today. Have a great rest of the afternoon.
You as well.
Thank you.